If you're a big baseball fan or know somebody that is a big baseball fan, you're going to want to stick around because I'm going to show you how to create this custom baseball plate. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Edgar with A Timber and Pine, and in this video I'm going to share with you step by step on how you're able to create these custom baseball plates. It's actually really not that difficult, but it is a project that will allow you to get out of your comfort zone if you're wanting to go into something more difficult. The reason why I say this is because it does require some planning, it does require some time in the design aspect, and it is going to require multiple toolpaths that you may not have utilized all in one project. In this video, I'm going to take you step by step from the material preparation, how I set everything up in preparation for the carve. Then I'm going to show you how to design it in Carbide Create. If you're not using Carbide Create, don't worry, just utilize the same principles and apply it to the program that you're using. And then after the design aspect, I'm going to show you how to create the toolpaths and all the settings that I use to be able to execute this project. Before jumping into the video, I do want to say thank you very much for your support. I can't do this without you. If you are liking the content, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and leave me a comment. I try to respond to those as fast as I can, but all that helps with the algorithm. Also, if you want to pick up a shirt, I just released some brand new merch, some brand new shirts. That also helps out the channel grow, and it also allows me to invest back into the channel. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the video.
The first thing I did was I painted my pine edge glue panels white. I had some leftover interior white paint and this worked out great, so get yourself any white paint and paint your material. I applied 2 coats to get good coverage. I painted on a warm day and I was able to set these outside to dry. As far as the material that will be placed into the plate to give it the raised appearance, I stayed 1 board black for my black letters and 1 orange for my orange letters. Let me share with you a real-time clip on that.
I'm using this MDF material that has, I don't know, some sort of veneer on top of it. And on one side it's very smooth, on the other side it's rough. It's still smooth, but it's a rougher feel to it. So what I'm doing is I'm just adding black and orange to some of these scrap pieces that I have, and then these are only about a 1/4 inch material, so this should work to be able to give it that raised appearance to the plate. So
once the paint was dry, I torched the white boards that will eventually become the plates and the orange MDF board. I left the black board alone, obviously. With everything stained and torched, I sealed my 3 boards, not only to reduce tear out when carving, but specifically for the next part of the process on the plates. Once the stain was dried, I applied a coat of brown stain on the white boards. I'm using Varathane walnut here, but I'm sure any brown will work. I really like how this gave the appearance of dirt on the plate. You can see here in this shot the difference between a plate with brown stain and one without. This part's just preference though, so make it look how you would like. There's really no wrong way to go. I do want to recommend that you take some extra time and do a practice run if you do run this project or any new project that you undergo. It does add some extra time, but you at least will know how to execute the project on your good material once you got the order of operations down. I did have some extra pine laying around, so I ran a practice run on that, and also the orange and black boards were large enough to do some practice run on them as well. I just want to be completely honest and let you guys know that I don't just come up with ideas and then execute them right the first time. There is usually a practice run first. Let's jump into Carbide Create now and let me just show you how to set this project up.
Alright guys, so jumping into Carbide Create, the very first thing that you want to do is you want to set up your job. You want to do your job setup, and that is going to be based on the material size, the size of your material. So in this particular case, I'm using edge glued panels from Lowe's. I do recommend those. The height was 12 inches and the width really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as long as it's 12 inches in this particular case. You could always make them bigger, make them smaller. It's all up to you. And once you have your job set up, go ahead and click OK. The next thing that we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and bring in the plate SVG. I didn't have one, so I purchased one. If you need one, go ahead and purchase the one off my Etsy shop. It does help support the channel a bit more. And I'm also going to not only provide just a plain Jane baseball plate, I'm also going to give you the final product where you are able to just go ahead and start creating your custom baseball plates. So if you need one, go ahead and go pick one up. The size of the baseball plate here is really up to you. It doesn't really matter what size it is. My material is 12 inches wide, so that is why I made it this size. If you need to change your dimensions, if you want to go ahead and align it to what I'm using, go ahead and select your plate vector, come over here to the scale option, and then go ahead and enter these dimensions. The width is 10.8825 and the height is 10.9845. Go ahead and click done once you have that. Let's go ahead and talk about how I'm going to be able to create the appearance of slats on this plate. I have one already created, and let's go ahead and just talk about this particular one. This is created with a square vector, so just go ahead and click on this square vector here and create one any size. Once you have your vector created, we're going to go ahead and modify this. You can make the height anything that is bigger than the plate, so in this particular case, let's just use 14. and the width here is going to be 0.0625. And that is how you create your lines for these slats. The next thing that we want to do is we want to organize our lines and create slats. I'm going to space mine 1.5 inches apart. With that, now I'm going to make sure to zoom in a little bit so I can see this midpoint option, and I'm going to just attach it to the midpoint of this line here, of this grid. I'm going to repeat this process until the entire plate is covered with these lines. So let's go ahead and place these at 1.5 inch increments. All I'm doing is copying and pasting. So I have a Mac, so I'm using Command C to copy and Command V to paste. If you have Windows, you're going to hit Control C to copy and Control V to paste. As you can see here, my lines are not spaced evenly within the plate. What we're going to do to fix that is we're going to select all our lines. We're going to group our lines. And then with our line selected, we're going to hold Shift and select the baseball plate. And over here in the transform option, we're going to go ahead and click on the align vectors option, and we're going to align them horizontally. And now my lines, my slats are spaced evenly within the baseball plate. So now with the slats set up within our baseball plate, we're going to now add the name of the player, of the coach, whoever you want to add. Let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to click on this create text option. I'm going to enter the last name of the person. In this case, we're going to go ahead and use Holmes as our example. In the font option, I'm going to use Varsity Team. If you need help on making more fonts available in Carbide Create, go ahead and take a look at the video in the description below. I recently made a video on how to get more fonts available in Carbide Create specifically for this project. So go ahead and take a look at that video. Now with the name added, we're going to resize this because we do want to make it bigger. With it resized, go ahead and double click on it, and we want to enable the arc. So here in this arc option, we want to go ahead and enable this because we want the name to be in an arc shape. With the name now in this arc format, we're going to have these circles here that are going to allow us to modify the name, the location. So here you can see as I move left and right, I'm able to change the location of the name. This bottom circle here is going to allow me to change how much of an arc I'm going to have. So the further I pull away, the less of an arc I have. As I bring it in, the more of an arc I'm going to have. But as you can see here, as I'm getting this closer and I'm getting this arc here, these letters are overlapping, and that's not okay. So to fix that, we're going to come over here to the spacing option, and we're going to enter a larger number here. And what worked for me is 150. You can go ahead and play around with this if you need to. All right, so now our letters are spaced out more. By double clicking on it, I have this, I can come back to this option, and obviously this is not going to be a good orientation, so I need to mess around with the orientation here. So go ahead and take some time, go ahead and get it to what you think looks best. I'm going to play around with it a little bit more until I get it just right. So go ahead and just keep double clicking on your text and use these two circles to get the correct placement of your text. Once you think you have a good arc on your text and you like the way it looks, go ahead and make sure it's highlighted. We're going to center it within the plate. Go ahead and have your name highlighted. We're going to click here on this align vectors. We're going to go ahead and align it horizontally again. And that actually looks pretty good to me. For the sake of this example, we're going to go ahead and keep it like that. Once you have your name completed, go ahead and bring in your logo SVG, whether it's a team logo, a business logo, whatever it may be, go ahead and bring that in. I actually have mine already here. Originally, this was a picture, so I converted it within Carbide Create to get this SVG. So if you need also additional help on creating SVGs out of simple images, go ahead and take a look at the video in the description below on how to do that as well. I do have a video on that. Once you have your team logo or whatever it is that you want to include in this baseball plate, go ahead and resize it. Once you have it resized, go ahead and put it where you think it looks best. Let's say I like it there. I'm going to have my logo, my vectors highlighted. I'm going to come back to this align vectors option, and again, I'm going to align it horizontally. Now my logo is in the center of this baseball plate. Okay, now the last thing that I want to do, that I wanted to include a little bit of information about the team itself. My son was on the 8U All-Stars in 2023, so this is something that we're going to be able to remember for as long as we have this piece. The way that I designed this and the way that I envisioned it and I executed this was for the name to be raised out of the plate as well as the logo. The logo itself was also going to be raised. But the text here that I have here, this AU All-Stars 2023, I wanted it V-carved into the plate. So go ahead and pick your favorite text to V-carve, or however you want to get some text on here, if you want to at all. So go ahead and get that text created. And the same thing, make sure that your text is highlighted, and we're going to come back over to the align vectors option, and we're going to align horizontally. Now this text is aligned within the center of this plate. Keep in mind that these are two different lines of text. So I have two different lines of text. It's this AU All-Stars and then this 2023. To get the text aligned how I liked it, I went ahead and selected the 2023. I picked a good distance between the all and the 2023. It could have been down here. It could have been like right up to the letters. But I think, let's just say that that's good right there. Now I want this 2023 to be aligned to the center of this All-Stars. Well, to go ahead and select your 2023, so then hold Shift and select your text, AU All-Stars, and then come back to the align vectors option, and then you guessed it, align horizontally. Now my 2023 is to the center of this AU All-Stars. So that's how you would do that, and then make sure to group this. So that is how you would set this project up. Now let's go ahead and talk about the toolpaths. Okay, so this is the actual setup that I used for this particular project. I carved two baseball plates at the same time. So let's just go ahead and talk about each individual toolpath. The very first toolpath that you want to run is going to be your slats, or these lines. It's going to give it the appearance of slats being put together to create this baseball plate. So you want to make sure to get that out of the way first. The reason why I did that is because even though the lines are here, I'm going to be able to pocket these letters deeper than the lines themselves. So it's going to allow for a continuous slat line to be there, even though I'm going to pocket these letters and these logos. And you'll see what I'm talking about here once we go into the simulation and actually see the execution of this project. To carve these lines, I used a V-carve toolpath with a 60-degree vbit. My plunge rate was 80, my feed rate was 90, my RPM was 18,000. My max step was stock bottom, and I just called this lines. After I did the lines, I went ahead and did the names and my logo. So I used an advanced V-carve toolpath. My pocket toolpath was enabled, so I used a 1/8 end mill. My plunge rate was 80, my feed rate was 90, my RPM was 18,000. I then came back in with a 60-degree V-bit to finish this off. Again, my plunge rate is 80, feed rate 90, RPM 18,000. My max step for the name and the logo was 0.1, and go ahead and name it what you like. After the name and the logo was completed, I then moved on to this additional text below it, and that is going to be carved with a V-carve. I ended up using the 60-degree V-bit again with a plunge rate of 80, feed rate 90, RPM at 18,000, and my max step was stock bottom again, 0.75. And then go ahead and name it again what you'd like. The last thing that I did was carved out the plate itself. Before carving out any project, you're going to want to create tabs. To add tabs to any project, you want to select the vectors that are going to be cut out, and you're going to want to add tabs. So in this particular case, we're going to carve out this baseball plate. We need to select it. Once it's selected, we need to come over to this edit option, and we're going to click on edit tabs. And you're going to place these tabs wherever you think it's best. With our tabs added, let's go back to Toolpaths, and we're going to run a contour toolpath. And in this case, I used a 201 1/4-inch end mill. My plunge rate was 80, my feed rate was 90, my RPM was 18,000. My max depth is 0.75, the stock bottom. I want to carve this plate completely out. One other thing that you want to keep in mind is that you want your toolpath settings set to the outside right. As you can see here, this blue line is the location and the toolpath the end mill will go. It's going to be on the outside of our vector, which is what we want. This is going to give us the correctly sized plate. If we were to go on the inside left, you can see that it's going to be on the inside of our vector, reducing the total size of our plate. If there is no offset, it's just going to go on the line. It's just going to carve on this line, and we don't want that either. It's still going to reduce the size. So we want to make sure that we are outside right. Once you have that completed, go ahead and name it what you'd like and click OK. Let's go ahead and enable all these for the sake of the simulation. All right, so as you can see here, we have these lines giving us the appearance of slats. Also, you can see here that our name and our logo is going to be carved deeper than these slat lines, so it doesn't even affect our name or our logo. Same with this V-carve. It's not, these lines are not impacting our text, and it still appears as though these are slats put together. And lastly, you can see that these tabs are securing our baseball plate to our material, and it's just going to secure that, but still carve it out. And all we got to do is cut these tabs off and then do a little bit of sanding, and we're gonna have a perfectly carved out plate. Now with the plate completed, let's go ahead and talk about how we carved out the letters to be able to give it the raised appearance. So let's go ahead and go on to that. Now with our baseball plate created, we want to move on to carving out these letters and this logo to give it the raised appearance. And let me go ahead and show you how to do that now. The first thing that we want to do is we want to select our name. We're going to come to the offset option. We're going to create an offset with a distance of 0.0350, and the offset direction is going to be inside. Once you have that entered, go ahead and click apply. And now we're going to have a offset created within the text or the name. And you're going to want to group that immediately. And then you're going to want to pull that out. We're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing for this particular logo. It's very simple. So I actually could have done it all at once, but for the sake of this example, we're going to do it separately. So go ahead and make sure you have your logo selected. We're going to go ahead and click on this offset vectors. Distance again is 0.0350. Offset direction is inside. Click apply, group it, and then go ahead and pull it out. So now these letters are now going to go within the pocketed areas on our home plate. So to carve this out, we're going to go ahead and use a contour toolpath again. To carve anything out in Carbide Create, you're going to want to use a contour toolpath, and you're going to need some tabs. It's just the easiest way to be able to secure your pieces without them flying out as the router's carving them out. So go ahead and select whatever it is that you want to carve out, and you're going to come over to this tab option. You're going to edit tabs, and now you're going to start adding these tabs by clicking on your vectors, and you're going to add the tabs wherever you think it's best for your particular project. So let's just go ahead and continue adding tabs for this example. Once you have your tabs set up, go ahead and click OK. We're going to go ahead and create a contour toolpath. I'm going to use a 1/8 end mill. My plunge and feed rate are going to be 80-90 with an RPM of 18,000. I'm going to use stock bottom because I want to carve them out. My offset direction is going to be outside right. Go ahead and name it if you'd like. Go ahead and click OK. And now let's take a look at that simulation. And as you can see here, the letters are going to be carved out, but they are going to be held in place by the tabs. So let me go ahead and show you some video clips of this actually being performed.
Once the appearance of slats being completed and the text was pocketed, I added a piece of Orocal vinyl on the plate. I did this because the text under the logo is V-carved and will be painted black. The vbit will carve through the vinyl and allow us to paint the letters only. Once the paint is dry, you can then remove the vinyl. I suggest that you wait until the paint is fully dry so you won't get any paint in areas you don't want it to get into. Ask me how I know. A link in the description is below if you need to get some of this Orocal vinyl. Another tip is that you're going to want to run your contour toolpath to cut the plate out before you paint. You don't want to get any wood dust into your letters after you paint because then you'll have to do some cleanup afterwards. So cut out the plate first and then paint. Once the plates were finished and the letters were carved out, I had to do some cleanup on the letters and remove any of the remaining tabs left over. The easiest way for me to do this was to use an X-Acto knife and just shave off the remaining tab excess. I did try sanding, but it ended up affecting the look of my letters, my test letters. They started curving and I just didn't want that. Like I said before, take the vinyl off after the paint is dried. It's so much easier. I used my X-Acto knife to remove all the remaining vinyl. When I test fitted the letters before gluing them in place, I noticed that some of my letters have sharp points that did not fit correctly within the pocket. So let's jump into a clip of me going through this in real time and I'll share my solution.
So the M won't fit because of these sharp corners here. So I'm going to have to cut these down like about to right there, just to be able to make the M fit. As you can see, the M is rounded here because I was not able to cut that corner out or sharply with the 1/8 end mill. But because I advanced V-carved these and I came back in with the 60-degree V-bit, it gave me the sharp corners as it technically should have. I can't use the contour toolpath and get that sharp detail with a 1/8 end mill. So maybe that's something I'll have to figure out how to do later, but for now I'll just have to cut this area down to get it to fit. And there we go, that's a snug fit right there.
Next, let's talk about the frame. The easiest way to show you this is just to show you the end product because it took some time to try to figure this out, and I ended up finding some angles online that someone recommended and they worked out. Take some time now to pause and write down the angles. Once I had my frame pieces cut to size and with the correct angles, I stained them black, and while they were drying, I started gluing the pieces into the plate. With the pieces glued, I then moved on to attaching the frame. To attach the frame, I used 1/4-inch brad nails only and no glue. When attaching the frame, I found it best to attach from the bottom up. This gives you the option to trim the vertical pieces to size if you need to shorten them. With the frame attached, I added a coat of poly to the frame and let that dry. And that was it. Here is the final product once again. What do you guys think?